A lot of it had to do with a friend who had an uncle who worked at Rocketdyne. This guy was convinced that there was no way to do it. He was an engineer, and he said they were so far away from doing it.
Having seen hundreds of rocket firings when I was employed by Rocketdyne, I know that the jet of the lunar module lander, the lunar lander, would have created an enormous crater. It would have scoured the moon's surface. It would have tossed up rocks, sand, everything, and created a crater maybe so large that the entire lunar lander could have sunk into it. After all, we're dealing with a 10,000-pound thrust engine, which is pointed directly at the surface, lowered into the surface, and yet, if you look at pictures of the lunar lander on the moon, there is no disturbance whatsoever under the lunar lander's rocket.
And no dust deposited in the pads, the cup-shaped pads at the bottom.
That's another good point. Dust would have been blown 6 ways from Sunday and would have landed everywhere.
Well, scientists have said that if you land something on the moon, it would literally go poosh and like create a crater, and it would just like create a huge space. None of that happened. So obviously if this was a set and it wasn't real, then they must have been on wires, and people are claiming that they can see the wires. Take a look.
A magic trick? No, just the help of a wireman.
You can see on the back of his shirt a couple of upticks on either side where you would expect wires to come in on either side of that harness. Aside from that though, we don't go anywhere in the solar system. There's no Jetsons future. There's no dawning of a space age for humanity where we can jet off to all points of the solar system whenever we want. Nothing happened. The moon landing stopped in 1972 and we haven't been back. We haven't been beyond the Van Allen belts, which many have pointed out have deadly radiation that living creatures can't survive, not even a tortoise or a cockroach, let alone a human being. In Ralph Renee's NASA Moon to America, he pointed out that physicist James Van Allen was the first one to discover that space had deadly nuclear radiation flying around all over the place. Not only were the Van Allen radiation belts deadly, which are like two orbiting toruses of nuclear radiation around the Earth, but later we found there were galactic cosmic rays, which were deadly.
They just had a time switch, let's say, between that character and this character, who appears to be on a harness, for sure, but we're not going to worry about that. I believe they're on a green screen. In fact, it will be hard to dispute that that is a green screen in the background, where the flags are waving. The flags are going to be our main clue here to what's going on and what I'm pointing out. Watch the wipe. Okay, so changing times. Yes, one time to a new time is what we're looking at, because people don't appear in a wipe in reality, in the normal 3D world as we decode it. So watch, this is in reverse and forward. Watch the background. You see those flags? See how they stay in the same pattern? I'm going to go frame by frame here, okay? You see the wipe going from left to right. It's hitting the blue and yellow flag. I believe that's Sweden right now. And we're going through to the right. And you'll see the actor appear. The actor not. And you'll see the flags stay in a consistent motion. You would see a difference actually. I'm going backwards now. You see the background? It's actually in motion and remains the same. That is an absolute green screen fail.
There's no way people went on the moon. There's no way.
Trouble in space this morning as the International Space Crew attempted a spacewalk outside the station. Here's a live look at the astronauts. Well, I don't believe that's... Yeah, we
some of the video that Seabro has of them faking the distance between the Earth and the Moon when they're shooting the Moon, or the Earth rather, through a circular window in the lunar module, and they have the windows blacked out. They're pretending that it's deep space. They're saying that they're 130,000 miles out, and then you see them pull the window curtains down, or the shade, whatever they have covering up with the windows, and you see that they're actually in near-Earth orbit. That makes me curious.
We never landed on the moon. It was all fake.
An article from the Telegraph. Moon rock given to Holland by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin is fake. A moon rock given to the Dutch Prime Minister by Apollo 11 astronauts in 1969 has turned out to be a fake. Oh wow. A piece of the moon rock was given during a goodwill tour by the 3 Apollo 11 astronauts. Curators at Amsterdam's Rijksmuseum, where the rock has attracted tens of thousands of visitors each year, discovered that the lunar rock, valued at 308,000 pounds, was in fact petrified wood. Gotta be kidding me.
It seems weird to me when I look at the press conference and I see Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong and Michael Collins nervous and weird and obviously like being deceptive after they came back.
99 proceeded. 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Right away, Houston. Vector grid. Ag thought.
From Mark Cameron. This is from Mark Cameron.
Whilst in space, have you ever looked away from Earth into the black void?
Yeah. So because you can see, because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon. The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon.
And the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
The sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth.
Yeah, you can, and there's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons.
You see the gas Magellan clouds of the
Milky
Way
you see
galaxy.
The
pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
Then when you look out into deep space away from the sun, it's the darkest black you can imagine.
And the most frightening darkness that you could ever imagine.
Pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
The sky, of course, was black, but it had sort of a velvet sheen to it.
The biggest visual surprise was just how black the sky was. You have a brilliant sun, brighter than any sun you normally would see, even here in New Mexico. You have these extraordinarily high mountains. We were in a valley deeper than the Grand Canyon. But then you have this black sky, a sky blacker than black, as the old Vidicon expression used to be.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
I've often tried to explain the difference between darkness, when you turn out the lights and it's dark in here, or blackness. Blackness is the endlessness of it all. It's hard to comprehend.
But it would be harder. See, people think it was actually hard to get to the moon. Yes, it was hard, certainly, but it would have been way harder to hoax it.
Yes, today. But hoaxing things back then was really sort of the way they did it. I mean, that's how they got into the Gulf of Tonkin. That's
you fake news stories. You know,
there was a lot fakery going on back then.
You're faking news.
It was the height of the Cold War. And there was a lot of reasons why I thought some fuckery was afoot. If anything is scientific, you should be able to question it, and someone would give you an answer. But there's a bit of emotion and attachment and pride with certain historical accomplishments, like one of them being the moon landing.
It went beyond science. It was a cultural achievement. Since the moon has no atmosphere, then a daytime picture, if you're there in the daytime of the moon, you see a full night sky of stars, even with the sun in the sky as well. You don't see stars in the daytime on Earth, not because they're not there, but because the atmosphere is aglow with scattered light from the sun. If you take away the atmosphere, the sun will still be there, but the sky goes dark.
Just look at the footage again. No stars. Where the fuck are the stars? It makes you wonder, have we ever actually been to the moon?
The faking of spacewalks in a swimming pool. In this vid, you catch a glimpse of someone wearing a scuba tank. In 2013, a gallon of water leaked into one of their spacesuits in a matter of seconds. NASA doesn't really have a proper explanation for how on earth this could have happened.
They take scientific discoveries that look something like this and turn them into something like this.
There's a lot of sort of technical iteration of trying to get the structures and features we want to exist on the surface. But then there's this whole extra layer of just tweaking and tweaking and tweaking until it perceptually feels right. And that's where we go, I think, way past the science inputs, and that's just instinct.
That's one of the debates that we've had, right? Which is how much should we push our artwork toward photoreal versus diagrammatic art? I think we tend to move a little more photoreal because there's some emotion in that. Like, we can imagine that's a real place out there.
We're looking at something, but look at, in their own words, they're only seeing data. It has nothing to do with these strips of data of how far away, because I keep hearing people say that in 2017 we can't have a picture of Earth because we don't even go high enough or far enough away. So we have to use strips of data. But watch this. This right here, in their own words, they're telling you that it's all bullshit.
You don't think the moon landing is real?
No, I don't. No. Do you?
Yeah.
Why do you think the moon landing is real? Why don't you tell me why?
I saw it on television.
Oh, you're a genius. Oh, beep that. Hit that.
We'll bleep it. We'll bleep it. No, it's okay. We got
That's
it.
genius. You saw it on TV? That's awesome. I'm going to show you some CGI. I'm going to show you King Kong. I saw that on TV, too. There's an 80-foot gorilla. He's running around kidnapping white chicks.
They faked 6 moon missions.
But that doesn't matter. These are not the same people.
So
We're living
because
in a
they're different
time.
people, they're not going to. I don't
All
understand
over
that
the world,
logic.
Well, the logic is just because someone faked something one point in time before you were alive doesn't mean that those same human beings have managed to download their brains into everybody that ever did that job for the rest of time, because they're not the same humans.
But open to the fact that maybe they faked it, because now you're open
Eddie.
to the fact that maybe they faked it.
I maybe they did fake that, but you can't just lump. And I'm not even saying they did.
That's the greatest achievement of mankind.
But at the time, there's
and it's
a reason
okay.
to
You know
do
what?
it. But at the time, there's a reason to do it.
We got new people now. Come on, man, that's hilarious.
So you're saying all of them are bad?
How can you see how I can't trust shit from NASA?
But it's
they
not that
fake
you-
sick,
but do you
so I
understand
should
that it's
trust
not
them
that you
because
can't
one
trust
example, because
shit?
maybe they all those bad people have died and they're all old, and the new NASA, they're the good NASA.
They can't all
You're going
be
to believe
bad.
that, open to the fact that maybe they faked it, because now you're open
Eddie.
to the fact that maybe they faked it.
I maybe they did fake that, but you can't just lump. And I'm not even saying they did.
That's the
do
greatest achievement of mankind.
But at the time, there's
and it's
a reason
okay.
to
You know
do
what?
it. But
we
at
got
the time,
new
there's
people.
a reason to do
we got
it.
new people now. Come on, man, that's hilarious.
So you're saying all of them are bad?
How can you see how I can't trust shit from NASA?
But it's
they
not that
fake
you-
sick,
but do you
so I
understand
should
that it's
trust
not
them
that you
because
can't
one
trust
example, because
shit?
maybe they all those bad people have died and they're all old, and the new NASA, they're the good NASA.
They can't all
You're going
be
to believe
bad.
that, open to the fact that maybe they faked it, because now you're open
Eddie.
to the fact that maybe they faked it.
Maybe they did fake that, but you can't just lump. And I'm not even saying they did.
That's the
do
greatest achievement of
but
mankind.
But at the time, there's
and it's
a
okay.
reason to
You know
do
what?
it. But
we
at the
got
time,
new
there's
people.
a reason to do
we got
it.
new people now. Come on, man, that's hilarious.
So you're saying all of them are bad?
How can you see how I can't trust shit from NASA?
But it's
they
not that
fake
you-
sick,
but do you
so I
understand
should
that it's
trust
not
them
that you
because
can't
one
trust
example,
shit?
because maybe they all those bad people have died and they're all old, and the new NASA, they're the good NASA.
They can't all
You're going
be
to believe
bad.
that.
Absolutely. I don't know enough about astrophysics, about space travel, about the science that's, the work that's been done, about how to get a rocket to the moon and back. I definitely don't know enough. Some of the stuff that they passed off as being legitimate photographs of space travel was actually test runs where they blacked out the background and pretended that they were in space. Some of the stuff that they filmed, they made out to look like they were on the moon when they were not. But does that mean they didn't go to the moon?
As a society, we're so scientifically illiterate,
Mhm.
and that causes so much room for speculation. And you're kind of a prisoner of people who are masters of their craft. You're kind of a prisoner to their quote unquote agenda. I don't want to put that bad of a term on it, but you're kind of a prisoner of that, because we don't have any choice but to take their word for it,
Right.
or to pursue it yourself.
Right, to learn about what they're talking about yourself, to know if they're right or not.
Yeah.
Well, that's absolutely the case, right?
Here it is. If you look at like the fuel that was loaded up into the Saturn V rocket, you can calculate where that fuel could take that rocket. It's to the moon and back. So they're not going to the Piggly Wiggly, right?
Yeah.
In the Saturn V.
If anybody has any real sense, they would look at it.
They don't have the telemetry data from the Apollo 11. Isn't that like the most important data? Isn't that like the most important thing? A huge technological achievement. They landed a man on the moon, brought him back, and they're missing the telemetry data? 14,000 something reels?
They're missing a lot of that stuff was not
because you can't fake it. You can't fake the telemetry data.
There's so much fraud when you look into it. I'm like, I don't trust shit. Look into it.